It pains me to say it, but I do not think that Scott Ritter is somebody trustworthy anymore, and I frankly do not think that the alt commentariat, of which I am a member, should listen to him anymore. I think that one of two possibilities has emerged about Scott Ritter. Either one, he is a hysteric who, in the absence of new information or change in the situation, becomes hysterical and starts looking for change where there is none. In other words, he doesn't seem to hold fast to his original position over time. That's one possibility. And the other possibility, which I think might be actually more likely, is that he has found people in the mainstream media who are willing to bring him back into the fold, if you will. Because do keep in mind that Scott Ritter has been expunged from the mainstream commentariat. And there are a lot of people who are in the alt commentariat, people like, for instance, Clint Ehrlich, who desperately want to get back into the mainstream commentariat because it represents money to them. They can earn a living by working at some think tank or as an occasional talking head on one of the channels, spouting out the narrative of the Western regimes. See, so it is lucrative for these people to sell their integrity for the sake of a steady paycheck, and that's understandable. Now, I was under the impression that Scott Ritter was somebody who had, well, he has a great deal of knowledge, a great deal of experience. He knows Russian and he knows the Russian mentality. But it seems to me, with his recent statements and an article that I'm going to read now, it's clear to me that he is no longer to be trusted. And I am certainly not going to trust anything that he says. I'll listen to him, but I'm certainly not going to, really depend on any of his judgments because I think that he is unsound, and I'm going to explain why. Now, during my lost week, if you recall, in April, from April 15th to April 22nd, I was arrested by the SBU, and, I was incommunicado, as they say. And while I was, gone, a lot of speculation was going on as to my fate, of course. Oh, crap, man. Another air raid siren. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. It's that I keep the window open because, it's lovely spring weather, and then the air raid siren goes off, and, I have to shut it off. But anyway, and this fucking thing, man, all the time, right when I'm recording fucking videos. Anyway, while I was on my lost week, and by the way, some people have speculated that I made it all up. Well, I've actually given documents to the two Alexes on the Duran that pretty much proves that I've been there. I'm not going to circulate them publicly because they're private documents, but I've circulated to them, and I've circulated them to other online people who can vouch for the fact that, I had a little bit of a lost week there. So anyway, Scott Ritter, while I was away, and of course unbeknownst to me, he declared on his Telegram channel, and I'm going to read it, quote, Gonzalo Lira, a Chilean social media, quote, influencer, end quote, who resided in Kharkov, Ukraine, and who published online content critical of the Ukrainian government, was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by the Kraken unit, part of the Azov battalion affiliated with the Ukrainian Security Services, SBU. Well, let's parse this. First of all, nobody calls me Gonzo. I just don't like it, and I don't have to put up with it. And people who know me know that I don't like to be called that, period. So him calling me Gonzalo Lira is like acting like we're buddies. We've done a couple of streams together, and that's pretty much it, number one. And number two, he makes the allegation that I was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered by the Kraken unit. He states that very, like he knows. He didn't know shit. And this was just injudicious at best, he had no information as to my whereabouts. Nobody did. But he just spouted this. Either he heard this rumor or he made it up himself. Either way, grotesquely injudicious. Because if you were to say something like this, you better have receipts to back it up. Yeah, it's very serious to say that somebody's dead. Huh? I mean, did you see the murder video? If it's an ISIS-style killing or something like that? I mean, do you know for a fact? What? And so right there, since I know that I wasn't killed by the Kraken unit, right there, I mean, I know that Scott Ritter is full of shit, right? I know for a fact because I'm not dead, Oh, man. So anyway, but the point, is that he says this like he knows what he's talking about. Now, that's one thing, and that led me to believe that Scott Ritter was just an injudicious individual. Injudicious in the sense that he lacks judgment, that he'll say some idiocy, just fly off the handlebar, I mean, just, and I mentioned this obliquely a couple of times here and there on different streams with different people, because I don't want to get into a spat with the guy, and I'm not going to get into a spat with him now. I'm going to say this, I'm going to say my piece, and I am never again going to interact with Scott Ritter or pay him any mind whatsoever. I just want to be clear. I'm not doing this to create drama. I'm here to end it and end my relationship with Scott Ritter formally in front of everybody, because I want nothing to do with this guy. And I'll explain why. On the first hand was this statement that he made about my fate, which is all so much bullshit. It's also, it's actually kind of funny and weird, out-of-body experience to hear from somebody stating very seriously, like he knows what he's talking about, that I've been kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. I was like, holy shit, man. Where? How did they do it? Did they cut my head off, man? I don't know. Anyway. That's the first thing. The second thing is that in energy intelligence, and this is what clued me in, by the way, which I think I understand now, Mr. Ritter's ambitions, because I'm not going to refer to him by the first name. And I pray that he does not refer to me by my first name and doesn't refer to me as Gonzalo Lira, because we're not fucking friends. Well, this Ritter individual, he gives an analysis of the current situation. And then he goes and says this: the failure of the invasion by Russia to, oh crap, of course, I was going to go and answer the phone, and of course it clicks out. Anyway, the failure of the invasion to deliver a knockout blow to the Ukrainian government has altered the political military landscape in ways that neither Russia nor NATO predicted. First and foremost, the stated Russian political objective, securing a neutral Ukraine, has not been accomplished, and given the limited military resources Russia has dedicated to date, is unlikely to be realized under current circumstances. Now, this sounds like something that would come out of the Atlantic Monthly. Okay? And what was interesting about Mr. Ritter was that when I first talked to him and I asked him, if Russia had any intention of getting rid of Zelensky, he said, no. Russia has every intention of keeping Mr. Zelensky at all costs. They could take him out whenever they wanted to. They probably have the human intelligence and the signal intelligence to pinpoint exactly where Mr. Zelensky is at all times and take him out with a hypersonic missile or anything whenever they wanted, said Mr. Ritter. But rather than take him out, they need him. They need Zelensky to sign the peace treaty, because Zelensky signing it, because he's been, pumped up by the West, Zelensky is credible. And so if Zelensky signs a peace treaty, it'll stick, rather than if some puppet regime is installed by Russia. I thought that was very clever analysis, because it is. It's extremely clever analysis. And I thought very highly of Mr. Ritter when he said that to me back in early April, when we first talked. And so anyway, he went on, or was it late March? It doesn't matter. He went on to say that the way things are going to happen is that Russia is going to basically demilitarize Ukraine, either by annihilating the Ukrainian armed forces or by getting them all to surrender, one or the other. And he is going to denazify. And that means getting all of the people who are neo-Nazis and crazies of the Azov battalion and all the rest of it and try them. This is what Mr. Ritter said to me. He said it to me on public live streams rather. Public live streams that are on my old channel and public live streams that are floating out there. There was a Twitter Spaces that we did together, and it was a real deal. And I thought, man, this is very intelligent. But now he's giving this talk, and changing radically his position, changing it to fit the narrative. And, all of a sudden I'm realizing what's going on with Mr. Ritter. He wants to desperately get back in with the mainstream media. And so he's knowingly denigrating the Russians, which is stupid, and saying that, talking about the limited military resources Russia has dedicated to date. And then he goes on to say, while it seems clear that Ukraine will not formally be joining NATO anytime soon, if ever, the reality is that the war has reforged the relationship between Ukraine and the transatlantic alliance. And he goes on to say, basically, I didn't quite highlight where he said it, but he basically says that this is going to be Russia's Vietnam, this endless war, or Russia's Afghanistan. Again, Afghanistan too. Mr. Ritter says this. And of course, it doesn't correspond to the reality on the ground. And he knows this. And so my only my only response is that Mr. Ritter wants to get in good with the mainstream media, with the narrative that the mainstream media is pushing. He's been exiled from it because, after all, he was a Marine officer, and he was, for a time, chief negotiator for the United Nations and weapons inspector and such like that. Well, not negotiator, a weapons inspector. And then he had some personal issues, and he was sort of like exiled. And then he gained a lot of credibility in the alt media. And it seems to me that now that he has gained this credibility in the alt media, he is being wooed by the mainstream media. And the price is, of course, to trim his sails to match the mainstream media. Trim his sails and alter what he has said so that in the alt world, there is a radically different perception of what's going on, i.e., he is being used to co-opt the alt media. And a lot of other people, smart people, people with a lot of military experience, like Andrei Martyanov, they've said, also Moon of Alabama, they've said that, Ritter's sudden U-turn is just bizarre, especially because it doesn't correspond to the facts. I think that this is his game, to try to get in good with the mainstream crowd, to try to get in good, to earn a nice paycheck from some nice think tank. The man is 60 years old, and because of the various personal circumstances that he's been involved in, and as I understand it, there was a stint in jail, and because of it, I'm sure that his economic circumstances are fairly straightened, and so getting a steady paycheck, that seems very attractive enough for him to cash in his integrity and start spewing a lot of Atlantic Monthly bullshit. So I don't trust Mr. Scott Ritter anymore. I will certainly listen to whatever he has to say, but I'll take whatever he says with a grain of salt. And anything he says, any analysis that he makes, I will check to see if the information that he is using to make these assertions is accurate or not, because I'm no longer going to trust his word. Because clearly he's been bought out. Now, the first quote that I showed about what he said about my own fate, just showed him to be a hysteric. I thought that that was what he really was, a hysteric. But reading this energy intelligence article that he posted just 2 days ago, I'll post a link in the description below. He's selling himself for a paycheck to get in with the people who push the narrative, who push the lies. He wants to be another liar like the rest of them. I have no time for such an individual. I have no time whatsoever, and I'm not going to pay attention to him anymore. You are free to do as you see fit. But as far as I'm concerned, I am not going to pay attention to him. And quite frankly, anybody who pushes him as any kind of authority on anything, I will think less of you as well.